Welcome back to another NCAT movie review. Today we have Dream Scenario, a movie that hits on fame and is it really worth it? Starring Freddy Krueger as Nicolas Cage. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
The film has Nicolas Cage at his method acting and manic best. He plays an average middle-aged man who is thrust into the limelight as he suddenly begins to appear in everybody's dreams, Freddy Krueger style, and looks at how manipulating corporations can be towards people with 15 minutes of fame.
And this movie also shows how greed can corrupt your life when all you're chasing is fame and recognition. And Nicolas Cage is terrifying in this by bringing such an eerie character to their dream scenarios.
And it plays on that fear of, like, you know, when you're in a dark room or something, and if you look at something for long enough, an outline or a shape seems to appear or your eyes play tricks on you. This movie did a really good job of that. And I think if Nicolas Cage was standing in the corner of a room and you could sort of see like an outline of him as a middle-aged balding man, you would be freaked out.
I know Nick Cage is a very method actor, and he does go method into this with his little subtle movements of how weird he is in general and the way he's playing this character. Like, he does certain facial expressions, certain body movements that just adds that layer of eeriness to his character that they're building to.
Going into this film, we didn't really read too much about what the hypothesis was for it or what the plot was going to be, but it catches you off guard with some interesting horror film aspects that you wouldn't really expect from a film like this. I mean, there is a few jumpy scenes, and there's also a couple of scenes that are just out and out graphic. So the aspect of this film sort of catches you off guard, and the pacing of the film is sort of kind of funny in that way because it just jumps around so much between one stage it's ecstasy and he's living the life, and then the next stage he's down in the dumps and everybody hates him. So I guess that's sort of how quickly life can change, especially in this day and age with cancel culture, which is another prominent topic, and how that can work, especially with social media and how people can just turn on someone so quickly if something doesn't go to their beliefs or what they agree with, which no doubt Nicolas Cage has probably had to deal with in his life. I mean, the guy's been in the limelight for 30, 40 years, and you could think about many, many scandals that he's gone through and the amount of times that media and also news outlets and entertainment news has just turned on him or used him as like an easy storyline or an easy clickbait title to just sell their papers without even taking into consideration the effect that it would have on his life or his mental state or his personality as a whole. So it's a very interesting look at something that not a lot of people in this world would have had to deal with, but he is one that you know that would definitely have had to deal with it. And he even says that in some of the interviews that he's done around this movie, that he saw himself become a meme, and essentially his whole life became out of his control because he was just dwindled down into a meme, and all of his acting and everything had been put aside, and he'd just become a meme for people online, which, I mean, all of us have sent at some point a Nicolas Cage meme, especially in the early 2012, 2013, early day memes. He was like the most prominent meme background or template on Facebook and Instagram, if that was around back then.
It also shows that anyone who gets this 15 minutes of fame seems to get corrupted very quickly by people who also want to capitalize on that. You wouldn't expect people to hit you up out of nowhere and being like, listen, we have an opportunity to partner you with Sprite. Does that sound good? I mean, in anyone's book, that sounds great. But in this film, he just wants to push his book and his ant theory or whatever to finally get his recognition, but the movie pushes him into a different light. It also shows that Nick Cage is trying not to be corrupt. He's trying not to corrupt his morals and judgment for these big corporations, but as a normal person, you kind of have to with the fame that comes with that. Nick Cage also doesn't want to change his persona or anything that he's done in his life just for these big corporations so they can get a quick buck out of him. And also, he enjoys his anonymity, but he also wants that money and that fame a little bit. He kind of does go into that a bit in the film.
But he wants the fame in his so-called boring little world, which is like he is an expert on ants, and then it shows how that isn't conducive to profiteering off his 15 minutes of fame. Now, an unsuspecting supporting actor is in this film, the great man Michael Cera, who, whenever Michael Cera shows up in a movie, you know it's going to be a memorable role. I mean, he's just one of the funniest looking dudes without even trying, let alone when he starts acting. But in this film, he plays something a little bit different that you're used to seeing of him. Now, in this film, he doesn't have his juice box, but in this film, he plays the typical corporate shill who finds these people with 15 minutes of fame and uses and abuses them and essentially tries to suck as much profit out of them as possible, while also boxing them in and just essentially turning them into a brand, a product for the corporation to use, and doesn't really care about what the person themselves want and just has ulterior motives and says, yeah, we'll give you what you want, but first you need to give us what we want. And that's always been their goal. They'll never give the person or the 15 minutes of fame what they want. And Michael Cera really plays this well and pushes it perfectly, where to the point where you would imagine that on these roundtable meetings, this is exactly how it would go.
Yeah, so overall, I think this movie does a very good job of setting up Nick Cage's kind of life and what he's been through, and then also some of the culture changes that has happened throughout his career and now into the new age. So I think this movie does set up a lot of those plot points. So just to wrap this up, I'm going to give it a very high rating, probably about 90%. This film hit on a lot of interesting points, very different take on a lot of things, and I think it relating to Nick Cage's life also, I think, related to then the audience, because everyone knows what he's gone through with the meme culture and him being vilified from the limelight. So this movie did touch on a lot of those things. I also think that the dream aspect that he was taking was an interesting, nuanced version of what Freddy Krueger was. So that was with less volatility. In saying that, though, there were parts where he was quite Freddy Krueger-like. That was also very interesting, and having that eeriness of his character build and develop to become something different.
My rating for this film will be around about a 90% too. I love Nicolas Cage. I love most of the work that he's been in. I mean, he's done a lot of stuff, so there's obviously been movies that aren't that great, but this new sort of age of Nicolas Cage where he's taking these films that look at his life introspectively, but also some films that he plays himself, picks a little fun of himself. I love that he's not taking himself too seriously anymore, because his knock has always been that he took himself so seriously, like with being a method actor and being quite frantic. I think you used to hear a lot of things about him on set and stuff like that. So it's good to see that he's sort of taking these roles that, take a different look at him, or take a different aspect where he's not just the action hero anymore. He's just a normal sort of guy.
And he's definitely starting to be being a bit more fluid and flexible throughout his acting ability now, instead of just being so one-dimensional. He's very
he's not
expanding.
He's not just the action hero anymore, which is a good marker for a man. I guess it's probably the marker of any once action hero who's getting a bit older, where they've got to find their new niche now. Like, I mean, Denzel Washington's probably about to go through the same thing. His acting in this deserves all the applause. I hope that it gets some sort of buzz from people and people realize that, because this movie didn't really get pushed a whole lot, so I think it's one of those sleeper hits that people are going to realize and see in the future and go, oh, what's this film? And then watch it and think, I wish I saw this all those years ago, because of how good his acting is in it. The concepts and scenarios in the film are crazy weird. I mean, this whole dream concept, because when you think about how crazy some of the dreams that we have are, and its ability to play on that and actually show how we feel in some of our dreams, especially there's one scene where he's punching in his dream and the punches do nothing. I mean, I've had that dream, every single night for the last 20 years of my life. So it played on really good aspects of what dreams really are like. Anything with Nick Cage in it, I'm going to give a chance, because the guy's a legend. It was a fresh take on what life is probably like as someone who's in the limelight with 15 minutes of fame, or just fame in general, meme culture. Very, very 2024, this movie. So
anyway, guys, don't forget to drop the like and subscribe and share it up. Question is Freddy Krueger fingering my schwanz?
Did you find Nicolas Cage as unnerving in this film as we did? And if you saw him as a sleep paralysis ghost in the corner, would you shit yourself? Because I would.
Or would you be the chick and want the scenario to play out in real life?
Yeah.
Kinky. Anyway, guys, it's been on the End Cut Movie Review. Peace, we out.
Peace.
And cut. Dream scenario, baby.
Yeah, legit.